Fuck. I just have no idea what to do here.
Show the table.
And Hellmuth just folded the best hands.
Yeah, it's just
You down to show?
I have ace-9, yeah.
Oh my God, what'd you do? You folded.
Excellent.
I didn't.
Oh, wait, I thought you folded.
No.
Did you not fold?
No,
I didn't fold.
he's
I'm
showing
thinking.
Did you see his hand?
He showed like ace-7 or something. Or ace-6.
No, dude.
I thought you folded.
No, he said show your hand and then he flipped it over.
God. You showed me the worst hand.
Phil, maybe
I thought you folded.
come up with a deal.
Yeah.
So what just happened here? I'm Bart Hanson from CrushLivePoker. I've been a professional poker player for over 15 years, and I'm going to give you my reaction to this controversial incident that happened over this past weekend at Hustler Casino Live involving professional poker player Phil Hellmuth and YouTube influencer and podcaster Slime. And the goal of this video really is to explain to people who might not know about poker what went down in this incident, and then I am going to give my take as to what I think should have happened and how Phil Hellmuth should have behaved.
Thank you. 700.
700.
What'd you have last?
See?
I had 4-5.
700.
You had so much in there, I thought you would call it.
Call 700.
Oh, it's either that.
Yeah, these hands are not connected at all, unfortunately.
So you can see here the hand starts with Phil raising it up here to 700 with ace-9 offsuit, and he's going to get many calls, and that's how it was all night. This was a very recreational game, as the game was filled with a lot of YouTube influencers and big-time non-poker celebrities, which is really, really important in terms of how you should act as a poker professional.
Out kicked. Mr. Beast is going to take a shot at it with absolutely nothing.
So here we have Slime flopping top pair and also Phil flopping top pair, and Mr. Beast leads out for 5,000, and Phil here is going to call. He was the pre-flop raiser, and all the numbers in the pot are accurate.
Phil calls.
And now Slime is going to check raise all in. And the action here is back to Phil Hellmuth. By the way, the commentator for this game is CrushLivePoker contributor and a friend of mine, David Tuckman. We've done thousands of hours of commentary together.
In a row, and it's just a picture of him with his glasses on. It's so funny.
So Phil's going to put this Hollywood act on. Now, Phil is sort of, in the poker world, kind of classified as like weak tight. He had made a lot of laydowns before this and after this. A lot of people would just call. They would snap call in this spot with Phil's hand without a doubt against the guy that might be shoving a draw or something like that. But Phil, you know, he likes to take his time. And there is a chance that he actually might have folded here. You know, it is 30,300 for him to call. So he's thinking about it.
Fuck. I just have no idea what to do.
Now, here's an important part of this too. So let's flip back here.
And then the camera gets close.
And where we see a little hand come into the camera area here is another poker pro, really the only other true poker pro at the table, Tom Dwan, who's a legend. You might have seen him on high stakes poker and things like that. Now, what they had been doing is they had been showing each other their cards. So here, Tom is sort of indicating with his hand, like, I want to see your hand, Phil, because they had been doing that a little bit before. So that's very, very important.
No idea what to do here.
Now, Phil says, I have no idea what to do here, and he slides over his cards to Tom. But it looks like he is just folding, especially with what he just said, which is, I have no idea what to do here. So now Slime taps the table and he thinks, oh, great, I won. The graphics person on the show also thinks that Phil folded because he types in fold.
Hellmuth just folded the best hands.
And so does Dave Tuckman, my buddy and the commentator. So the graphics person thinks Hellmuth folds, Tuckman thinks Hellmuth folds, and so does Slime.
You down to show?
I have ace-9, yeah.
Oh my God, what'd you do? You folded.
Excellent.
I didn't.
Oh, wait, I thought you folded.
No.
Did you not fold?
No,
I didn't fold.
he's
I'm
showing
thinking.
Did you see his hand?
He showed like ace-7 or something.
So what ended up happening here was Phil passed the cards over to Tom. Everybody thinks that Phil folded, but you can see that Phil's reaction here, he's actually somewhat quite surprised. and I think it was genuine. He didn't think that he was folding, and Slime exposed his hand early on. So now Phil has perfect information as to what to do.
Oh, wait, I thought you folded.
No.
Did you not fold?
No, I didn't fold.
he
I'm
showed
thinking.
Did you see his hand?
He showed like ace-7 or something, or ace-6.
I thought you folded.
No, he said show your hand and then he flipped it over.
God.
You showed me the worst hand.
Phil, maybe
I thought you
come
folded.
up with a deal.
Yeah, play for
Let's have a
He
deal.
shouldn't be punished for that.
I don't think you should be punished for folding your hand. All right, so what kind of deal?
Okay, so now what's going on here, and I want to comment on a lot of people in poker Twitter and maybe some people who, are a little bit green to poker. You can see here the line that's right under Phil's hand. So there's this circular line that's drawn on the felt around the table. In Southern California, that line is actually just a guide. It doesn't mean anything. So a lot of people thought that because Phil pushed his cards forward and it went over the line, Phil's hand is therefore dead. Also, people thought that because Phil allowed somebody else to see his cards, Phil's hand was absolutely dead. Neither of those are actually true in terms of the rules in a cash game. When you are playing in a cash game, and especially in sort of a celebrity cash game, the rules are somewhat loose, and there is no steadfast rule as to what is a fold until the dealer basically takes somebody's cards and puts them in the muck, which is somewhat of a dead zone. Now, there are different sort of interpretations about if somebody was surrendering their hand, and, could that be interpreted as a fold? And again, Phil was pushed the cards towards Tom Dwan, didn't really push the cards to the dealer. So that's what's going on. But obviously, Slime, who knows how many hours of live poker he's played. He thinks that obviously Phil is folding. I mean, the commentator thought that Phil was folding too, but his cards didn't hit the muck, and he didn't really push them towards the dealer. So there's been a lot of bad takes to one extreme in this situation, and then there's been a lot of bad takes in the other extreme. And I want to give you the poker side of this, what exactly is going on. If a floor man had been called over, it would have been very, very close as to how they would have ruled that. Normally, what's funny is if it was a non-celebrity game, in LA, they are pretty loose with the rules. I'm almost certain that they would have said that Phil's hand was not dead, even if he showed it to somebody else, and that it's Slime's responsibility to protect their hand. Now, if this was a tournament, all bets are off. Tournaments have very steadfast rules. Like if you're at the World Series of Poker, Phil's hand probably would have been declared dead because you can't show somebody else your hand or he's pushing it forward. But in a cash game, and especially with this setup, the rules are really, really loose.
No, I didn't fold.
he
I'm
showed
thinking.
Did you see his hand?
He showed like ace-7 or something, or ace-6.
I thought you folded.
No, he said show your hand and then he flipped it over.
God.
You showed me the worst hand.
Phil, maybe
I thought you
come
folded.
up with a deal.
Yeah, play for
Let's have a
He
deal.
shouldn't be punished for that.
I don't think you should be punished for folding your hand. All right, so what kind of deal?
So now they're talking about making a deal. This is something that is common in poker, maybe not in this exact situation. But what has happened here is that Slime's got his hand turned over. Phil knows that he's a huge favorite. You can see the percentages on the bottom left, and then they're trying to figure out some sort of fair way to rectify the situation. Now, I will take a small bit of exception, though, to what Phil said here about a couple seconds before.
I thought you
Come
folded.
up with a deal.
Yeah, play for
Let's have a
He
deal.
shouldn't be punished for that.
I don't think you should be punished for folding your hand. All right, so what?
So he says, I don't think that you should be punished for folding your hand. I never really saw Slime fold his hand at all. He just exposed his hand. I just thought it was really strange that Phil said that. I mean, maybe he meant to say, like, you shouldn't be punished for exposing your hand early.
What kind of deal? I don't know. I guess just take your money back.
Okay, so Phil says, just take your money back. But it's really important to note these percentages down here on the left. Phil is an absolutely huge favorite here in this hand. So in his mind, he thinks it's going to be fair for Slime's bet to really not stand. He's just going to take all the money back, and Phil is going to win what was in the pot before the bet. And we can flip back here and take a look at how much money was actually in the pot. And it would have been $13,000, But if you take Phil's call out, it would have been 8,000. So Phil would be just taking the entire 8,000 out. And this is where I think that Phil didn't really recognize what kind of situation that he was in or what kind of stage that he was in. Because I think at this point, there are a couple things that he could have done. Number one, he could have had Slime just take his money back and then just run out the cards. So you guys are just playing for $8,000. So Phil's going to win 85% of the time. Or if they wanted to do what is called an equity chop, which is not really all that common, Phil could have taken 85% of 8,000. And the reason why that's accurate is because in poker, all you have to do is multiply your percentage times the pot size to actually get the equity of the hand. In this case, 8,000 times 85 is $6,800. And the reason why that works out is because if you were to run it 100 times, Phil would win 85 times and Slime would win 15 times. So if you didn't want to run the cards out, that's the true equity. It's similar to flipping a coin. When you flip a coin, you have a 50% chance of winning. So if we were to both bet $50 on a coin flip, there would be $100 in the middle. Our equity in that coin flip is $50. If you wanted to just split it because we had an even chance of winning, I would get 50, you would get 50. If we didn't do that though, one person would get 100, the winner, and one person would get 0. That's the beautiful part about poker, is that there's enough luck in poker to keep the non-professionals to continue to play. I mean, there's a lot of recreational players in poker. I mean, people don't gamble on chess against like a grandmaster. You have no chance of winning. But in this particular situation, Slime's going to win 15 out of 100 times. So he's going to win sometimes if they run the cards out. Now, personally, what I think that Phil should have done in this situation, and what I would have done in this situation, is let Slime take his money back, and I would have actually just chopped the pot. I would have chopped the $8,000 and would have let Slime take $4,000, and I would have gotten $4,000. When in fact, my equity in an $8,000 pot would have been, say, $6,800. So, but I think that the whole situation sort of dictates that I would have just given Slime half the pot. Now, what ends up happening here, though, is that Slime doesn't know what Phil was proposing here in this particular situation, nor did probably any of the other guys, with the exception of like Tom Dwan or maybe Alan Keating. Slime obviously thinks that Phil is saying, put in 5,000. Remember, Slime hasn't called the 5,000 yet before the all-in, and then we're just going to run it. And you can see that with what Slime says here.
I gave you a pretty good deal.
All right, I call. So next card, yeah?
You're just
Oh, now it's my
conceding the
action.
pot.
No. What
I
happened?
just
you
folded up.
Yeah, because he's already seen it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, from Phil's perspective, though, he has it in his head that he is going to take the entire pot because he is so far ahead. He's 85%. And in fact, he is proposing to Slime, just put 5,000 in, and that's a great deal for you. And here you can hear Tom Dwan say, oh, put 10,000 in.
Put in 5,000 is fair. What do you think's fair? 5?
Yeah.
5 or 10 or something.
And I'm going to show you why here in a second they think that that is a good deal. So all things considered, let's say that no deal was made at all. Slime was all in, and Phil called because he could see what Slime had, and he saw that he was way ahead. So the pot would be $78,600. Like I said before, if you were to do an equity chop, all you have to do is multiply the percentage by the pot size, and what you would end up with here is Phil getting $68,800, Slime getting $11,800. That would be the result. So we can actually take what Slime should end up with, which is this figure, $11,800 here, and subtract it from his stack before the all-in. And this is actually what Slime would owe to the pot if they were to do like an equity chop. Because he's only supposed to end up with $11,800 in a $78,600 pot, he would need to actually put in $23,500 extra into the pot if they wanted to do an equity chop so that he would get back $11,800. Now, what Phil is saying is, oh, just put $5,000 in. just put 5,000 in. So from Phil's perspective, he thinks it's a great deal because he is actually leaving Slime with 30,300, not 11,800. By the way, if you want to learn about this stuff and you want to learn about live poker, Crush Live Poker, which is a live poker training site, the site that I own, is giving away the first 30 days for free to the first 20 signups. And you can take a look in the description for a link that will get you that free sign up. So when in fact, if it was a straight equity chop, Slime should actually put in 23,000 and a half. And I think that's where Tom Dwan was sort of thinking too, why he said, oh, put in 10,000. When originally Phil was saying, oh, you can just take your money back. But the point here is that Slime thinks that the cards are going to be run out, and Phil Hellmuth thinks this is done by an equity chop. Now, what ends up happening, of course, is that Phil takes the pot, and I've seen this happen over and over again in controversial situations like this. They run the cards out anyway. And of course, Slime would have won, and that makes this whole incident probably 10 times bigger than what it would have been, which would have been a big incident. But now because Slime would have won the pot, and he also didn't know what the hell Phil was talking about when he was like, put in 5,000 and I'll just win. It just makes it so much worse, which is why Hellmuth should never have ever even proposed this. What should have happened here, and what I specifically would have done, is I would have said, okay, Slime, take your all-in back. I didn't fold, but obviously you thought that I folded, and we'll just chop the pot. Now, some people, if they thought that that was a little bit too much of an advantage for Slime, could have said, okay, take your money back, and we'll just run out the cards on the turn in the river, and we'll see what would have happened. And obviously Slime would have won. But remember, Slime is only 15%. He's only going to win 15 out of 100 times in that situation. But the whole problem with this, and Phil's approach to this entire situation, is that he is counting Slime's all-in. He should never count Slime's all-in, because Phil did something that was very unorthodox, and it ended up having Slime expose his hand. Slime shouldn't have to put that money in my view. Now, maybe, like I said, it might have been ruled in Hellmuth's favor, but if you take a look at this stage, it's probably the biggest live stream in the history of poker. We're trying to bring new people into the game. We're not trying to gouge somebody, technically, if it was within the rules or whatever, because he's supposed to protect his hand and not expose his hand. He's supposed to know that I didn't fold. So let's take a look at this video that was done about a half an hour to an hour after the incident.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm here with Phil Hellmuth. Phil Hellmuth, they're on Twitter. They're yelling at me. They're saying that you slow rolled this guy down there during that hand where you push your cards forward and you look like, and some people were saying you passed him to Tom Dwan.
Now, Joey Ingram saying slow roll means angled. He's using that term interchangeably, like you did something nefarious, whether it was within the rules or right on the edge of a rule. That is what angling is, to basically gain an advantage. But he's using the term slow roll as angling.
Some on Twitter, they're fired up right now. They're thinking, what tell to me what
very
happened
obvious.
out
Like
there.
if you're a poker player, you understand.
And that's the problem, Phil. Most of these guys aren't poker players, and most of the viewers that came on are not poker players. That's the biggest issue with all of this that I think that he still doesn't get.
Yeah.
Basically, Dwan said, "Let me see what you're looking at," and I threw him my cards to look at. And then Keating says, "Show it to everybody since he's all in." So I just flipped it up to show it to everybody. It was pretty standard and normal.
Yeah.
But I didn't do anything wrong at all.
No angling going on there, right? Because that's what the people on
No. Come on, you can't.
Okay. And then
But people are stupid, so whatever.
Right.
But
So
all the
people
poker
are
players
stupid.
know that was normal.
That was a normal thing.
Yeah, well, he made a mistake. He made the mistake and flipped his hand.
Flip his
not
hand.
me.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really what I take exception with again. He made the mistake, but Phil, you did something that would cause somebody who's not experienced to flip their hand over because he thought you folded. I mean, your intention, I still believe that Phil's intention was just to show Dwan the cards. It wasn't to try to induce Slime to expose his hand, but that's what happened. So I wouldn't fault the guy. And that's why the entire, whatever deal they come up with, whether it's running the cards out, equity chop, chopping the pot, should always be before Slime's all in and should only be based upon $8,000.
Do you believe him or not?
I'm not fucking straddling.
You don't have to do that.
The good news.
And then add to that, Phil just knitting it up, saying, I'm not fucking straddling, when everybody else at the table is straddling. This money, this all in from Slime, should never, ever count in this hand. They should go back to the Mr. Beast bet and the Hellmuth call. And if you take Hellmuth's call out of there, the pot is $8,000. Whether they chop the $8,000 or they run the cards out, or I think probably the worst option, but still would kind of be fair, do an equity chop of $8,000. Those should be the results. This all in should never be a part of this. But Phil and Tom Dwan, it seems like, are thinking, oh, well, I'm going to give him a deal because he's so far behind. The pot would have been $78,600. I would have gotten $66,800 from the pot. Instead, I'm giving him $15,000 or $20,000 here in extra equity by only having him put in $5,000. That money that Slime puts all in should not be a part of this. And I think that that's what Phil didn't understand at the time, thinking just from a strict poker mentality.
I would have
No,
won.
he would have won.
I
He
called.
made aces and sixes.
I mean, he had to hit a 6 on
oh,
the
no,
next
I didn't see that.
2 cards. It's all right.
This is really interesting here too, because again, Slime says, I would have won if I had called. And again, that sort of shows the disconnect between what the players are thinking here, because Slime is the one that moved all in. He would have won if he didn't accept the Phil Hellmuth deal, but it wasn't like he had to call something. He's the one that moved all in, and it's Phil that sort of proposed this deal when obviously Slime has no idea what's going on with the deal, and that's what creates this sort of thing in terms of havoc here. Now, as I've said before, this whole situation really has brought out extreme arguments on either side. And I think that both are ridiculous. Both extremes are ridiculous. There is one side, and I feel strongly about this, that really thinks that Phil literally angled, which means that borderline cheating, where he was going to fold his hand, and then when he saw Slime expose his hand, he then said, oh, I'm not folding. When he saw that he had the best hand, he said, I'm not folding. His intention was to fold, but when Slime turned his hand over, his intention was to fold, and then he pulled like a mental audible and said, oh, I'm not folding. Okay, I think that that is total BS if you take a look at the reaction of Phil and just the way he's not known to play that type of angle in the past. That's ridiculous. There is no way that he intentionally did that. On the other extreme, there are the die-hard poker people that think Phil did absolutely nothing wrong. Shouldn't give any money back to Slime. It's Slime's responsibility to protect his hand. Phil is entitled to the entire pot, and Phil would have ended up losing, obviously, if that was the case. But again, from a poker perspective, Phil would have won that situation 85 out of 100 times. I think both of those extremes are ridiculous. And of course, I think the answer is really somewhat in the middle. I think that Phil certainly wasn't trying to angle, but the real issue here is that he entirely lost touch with the game that he was playing and the situation and the stage that this live stream really was on. You don't want to propose complicated deals where somebody might think that they got screwed over in a certain situation. And how about all the viewers that might not be really familiar with poker watching this for the first time? I mean, I'm a professional and I went through and tried to explain the situation as best as I could. And I'm sure that there are still people that don't understand it. So how does it look when they're watching it live? It was really, really in poor form and bad for the game. Now, I want to bring up a couple of things after the fact. I thought that this was really, really hilarious here. This was a post that was made on Reddit Poker, a final Hellmuth scorecard for tonight's Hustler Casino stream. Besides the fact that you get into this situation, Says, Angle shoots wreck for a $5,000 pot where he would have lost for $70,000. He continued his antics of being Phil Hellmuth, accusing of the deck being rigged, berating players for beating him, talking about what he would have folded, how he would have won, just being a nit in general. So it wasn't really a good showing by him, and this is really kind of his sort of MO. I also want to bring up some tweets here too. This was the initial tweet here from Daniel Negreanu. Not sure I would call it a really good deal for you. A second tweet here by Negreanu sort of agrees with what I was saying is I don't think Phil intentionally angled him, but multiple angles to get an amateur to show occurred. Cards pushed forward, finger wiggled to turn over the cards, turning your hand face up. These are all things that would definitely confuse somebody that might not be familiar with live poker. It's like, what's going on? Like, I don't understand, especially against like somebody that you've seen as a professional on TV. You think that it's all kind of standard. Again, Phil didn't really cheat in terms of the deal. The deal was misguided, but you do see situations from less scrupulous people in poker where somebody actually might try to run over someone and actually would try to cheat somebody. Now, what I said in my tweets here kind of sums this whole thing up. If I do something that's out of the ordinary, especially if my opponent is new to the game, that causes them to expose their hand because they thought I folded, at an absolute minimum, I would offer to chop the pot, if not surrendering the pot entirely. And then I said, add to this the stage that this was on, and also the fact that the cards were run out and my opponent would have won makes this situation an absolute disgrace. The poker rules part of this and whether this was a fold or not is entirely irrelevant. And I do really feel strongly about that. I think that people are looking at the wrong parts of this situation. They're sort of deadly focused on whether or not this was a fold, that this should have been a fold. And the major issue is Phil offering this complex equity chop that no one is going to understand at the table. It's not whether Phil's action should have been ruled a fold based upon whether he pushed his cards forward or something like that. And to that last tweet, Hellmuth responded to me with this. I agree with the take of Bart Hanson. I think chopping the pot would have been the classiest move and not accepting 5,000. It happened so fast. I just asked what was fair and went with it. I guess I'll give the 5,000 plus half of the pot back, which I think is the equitable resolution. Now, whether or not you want to say that Phil did this because of the pressure that was on him, at least he is making good with what could have happened. Another thing too is that he could have kind of figured that out after the fact a few hands later and done it at the time. He could have been like, wait a minute, this probably isn't the best thing here. I'm just going to give you half the pot back here. Take your 5,000 back, and the pot was 8,000. I'm going to give you 9,000 back. He could have done that at the time. And then finally he says, it's a deal. And he said, my bestie Hellmuth, I'm a big fan of the All In podcast, weighed in and told me I missed a good opportunity to give you a rebate, 9,000 coming your way. So that's what Phil is going to do here. But I hope that that sort of cleared up this entire situation and exactly what went on. If you're interested in these sorts of nuance in poker, there was another angling video that I did that was quite popular that covered two different scenarios, one from Hustler Casino Live and one from another poker live stream, and you can check that out right here.